As we've been mentioning, we're focused on the highest 55 beats and the blocks within those beats that account for over 50% of the homicides and shootings in the city. And in those top 55 beats that we're focused on, homicides are down 33.8% and shootings are down 36.6% year to date as of this date. There have been 3,682 guns recovered. 1,762 people have been arrested in possession of those guns. Carjackings are up 5%. We've arrested over 500 people, offenders for those, and continuing to be over half of those offenders arrested are juveniles, young people, teenagers and preteens. The challenges that we have continue to be obviously the CTA crime, neighborhood crime, and as I mentioned, carjacking, juvenile repeat offenders. What I'd like to do now is briefly go through some notable arrests that we've made. For homicide, 18-year-old Hader, that's H-A-D-E-R, Garcia, and a 17-year-old juvenile female was arrested on May 5th. While in jail, Hader was charged with an additional murder. These murders by Garcia and the juvenile were December 11th. The 20-year-old male in 2021, December 11th, was arrested for a murder in the 3700 block of West Belle Plaine. That's in the 17th district. That's Irving Park. The second murder that Garcia and Hader were charged with was on December 18th, 2021, in the 17th district in Albany Park in the 4700 block of North Avers. So Hader, Garcia, and the juvenile were arrested for two murders, one in Irving Park, one in Albany Park, both in the 17th district. Hader had two prior arrests, and the 17-year-old female juvenile had two prior arrests when they were charged with these two heinous murders. An arrest for aggravated battery that's notable is a 15-year-old was arrested on May 2nd, charged with felony aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, felony armed robbery with a firearm, and felony armed violence, illegal use of a firearm, and two felony counts of illegal possession of a controlled substance. This arrest occurred in the 10th district, and this 15-year-old was arrested after robbing a 20-year-old male at gunpoint and battering a 49-year-old male with a weapon. This happened in Albany Park as well. A weapon and narcotics were also recovered from this juvenile. Another notable arrest is a 15-year-old, another 15-year-old juvenile was arrested May 6th. On the previous crime, the juvenile had 5 prior arrests. So the juvenile that was arrested for the robbery of the 29-year-old and the 49-year-old had 5 prior arrests. Another notable arrest was a 15-year-old male juvenile was arrested on May 6th for robbery, aggravated battery against a police officer, and resisting. He was arrested on May 4th, and he had 1 prior arrest. This 15-year-old had 1 prior arrest as well. In addition, on May 6th in the 1st district, made a CTA arrest on the CTA for felony robbery, felony theft, and felony aggravated battery. This 18-year-old Donovan McClary, M-C-C-L-A-R-Y, was arrested on May 6th for a April 25th, 2022 robbery on the CTA. There was a vehicular hijacking arrest in the 6th district of 2 15-year-old males on May 8th. They were arrested after being identified as the 2 offenders who, less than an hour earlier, for 2 different hijacking arrests, one and then a second one an hour later, at gunpoint. These 2 15-year-olds held 27-year-old at gunpoint in the 700 block of South Honore. The 15-year-old that was arrested, both of them one had 3 prior arrests, and the second 15-year-old had 1 prior arrest. Separate arrest, a 14-year-old juvenile was arrested on May 4th, charged with felony aggravated vehicular hijacking, armed with a firearm. He was charged with carjacking a 53-year-old female rideshare person who at 7200 South Rockwall. Another 17-year-old was arrested for vehicular hijacking and charged with felony vehicular hijacking after hijacking a 28-year-old female in the 2nd District. This 17-year-old had 3 prior arrests. And finally, another 15-year-old arrested in the 6th District for aggravated vehicular hijacking. This 15-year-old had 2 prior arrests. I have Chief of Detective Brendan Deanahan come up with some investigative updates, but you see a common theme here. We are arresting people over and over again with previous criminal histories getting out of jail and continuing to commit crime without any real consequences. We'll come back for questions, but we'll have Chief Deanahan update you on some ongoing investigations over the past week. Brenda.
All right, thanks, Superintendent. So as everybody knows, excuse me, we had several murders over the weekend, and the detectives don't have anybody in custody at this time for those murders. So the superintendent talks about it a lot. I know we talk a lot about technology that the detectives are utilizing, but not all the murders, have cameras that capture it. So we definitely need the public's help on all the murders. I'll highlight the one out south near 116th and Lowell, where we had 2 individuals sitting on a porch, and offenders came up shooting at these 2 people that were sitting on the porch, and unfortunately we had a 64-year-old who was cutting grass in the back. He heard the gunfire and actually kind of came out to see what was happening, and he was struck 1 time with a bullet in his chest, causing his death, obviously an unintended target. And we don't have any leads on that specific case as well. So I just wanted to highlight that one case, but all of the murders from the north side to the south side, the detectives are seeking some assistance from the public. Once again, you can get us information anonymously through cpdtip.com, and we're just looking for assistance. I know people probably have questions. We had the shooting on Webster, and that individual is critical but stable. And once again, on that case, detectives have put out a seeking to identify, and they put out a crime pattern. We believe that the individuals responsible for that robbery and shooting are responsible for several more robberies and shootings as well. But once again, detectives need assistance in that case as well with identifying these offenders. We believe that there are definitely people out there who know that these guys are going out there committing these acts, and even anonymously will take the information. Detectives can work backwards to get these guys off the street. So,
We'll take any questions you have.
So there's a lot of, I know that's the story that came out right now. I talked to the detectives. There's a lot of conflicting information regarding exactly what happened. I know there's several witnesses stating that he was in his kitchen when it happened, but there's a lot of other witnesses who have provided different information to the detectives. So right now there's actually several different stories out there, and we're not exactly sure where he was when he was shot, and we have a lot more work to do on that. So we're looking for several offenders. There was obviously, I mean, you guys saw the video. There's a white car that fled the scene, and then approximately, I think it was very quickly, 4 to 7 minutes prior to that one, there was another robbery with that exact same white vehicle. So we know those guys are linked to that case as well. Then once again, obviously the detectives then are reading all the cases within the last 24 to 48 hours, even going back a week, and linking those. So we believe not the same car was used in every single one of these, but a lot of times they have tail cars, they switch cars, et cetera. Many times, obviously, the cars are stolen. So based upon the MO, we believe that these are the same offenders that committed those crimes. And once again, we have, I don't want to go too deep into the investigation exactly what the detectives are doing, but we definitely need help. And I have no doubt that there are people out there that they know exactly who these offenders are, And we need that information, and then the detectives can do their job and remove them from the streets. I don't have that information yet. So the detectives are reviewing all those cases and then trying to determine. If they are connected, then we will adjust the crime pattern and add those to it, but I don't have that answer at this time.
Has there been any
Sure. So as we talked about before, we have some specific focus on shootings and homicide, areas that drive the shootings and homicides using data, looking back over several years, as well as we do current analysis, as you mentioned, of robbery patterns, ag bad patterns, and we deploy resources. We are in the part of the year where we scale up our resources. A lot of schedule adjustments are happening, not just for Memorial Day, but as all you know, as it gets warmer, we have much more challenges as it relates to not only robberies, but all other crimes, shootings, homicides, robberies, and aggravated assaults, and aggravated batteries with firearms, as well as the carjacking. So we are scaling up our resources, adjusting schedules for the summer. We likely will do that as things transpire. We're going to be very, very flexible in the way we scale up our resources. So look for not only extra resources in Lincoln Park. We talked about the CTA, we talked about downtown, and we talked about this focus on the 55 B-Stiff Drive shootings and homicides. So all of those areas, to include Lincoln Park, will see increased resources, not just flooding, but specific to the blocks that we are seeing these crimes happen. Technology has been a significant resource in helping us arrest offenders who are on these robbery patterns or robbery sprees. They often have, utilizations of cars that track through our license plate readers, track through our pod cameras. We go back in time and look maybe where they are. We don't want to give away too much of how we solve some of these crimes, but we are using all of our technological resources as well as extra resources in the area to prevent. And finally, I'll say this, when I read through the notable arrests, we really do need your help, meaning the media and the public, in characterizing these are repeat offenders we are arresting for these robberies. And many are young people. And so they all have these offenders that we are arresting once we close out these cases. Previous arrests for similar crimes, previous arrests for violent crimes, previous arrests for possession of illegal weapons. And so we really want to make the case that prevention through our increased presence, we do make arrests, as I recounted in a notable arrest this past week, and we need the public's help, but we also utilize technology. There's two characterizations of that brazenness that I'll describe, kind of what I've been thinking about. We're also seeing, in addition to the brazenness and the attacks of these offenders using a gun, just seems for no apparent reason at all, just for a robbery. In addition, 16 officers have been shot at or shot this year. This continues the 500% increase in officers' attacks. So there's no respect for law enforcement, let alone our residents. It speaks to my point of when we do make these arrests, many of these dangerous people need to be held to trial instead of being released. I think the case has been made repeatedly for the last 2 years that there are offenders that we arrest that get out too frequently, who are dangerous. We want to make the case not only when we see brazenness, that when we make these arrests, and we've shown that we will make the arrest of these offenders, that they be held to trial. I think there's a case that there are dangerous people who will easily, brazenly use a firearm and caught on video, but there are others that are not caught on video that need to be held to trial and not released back in the community. So law enforcement, we make the arrest, we make the charge, and we try to make the case hold to trial. The why is the question to ask the judges. The judges have the purview of holding someone to trial. And so that question is an appropriate question. I appreciate that question, but our judges need to answer that question. Why are they deciding to release dangerous people back in the community that should be held to trial? You'll follow up?
No, carjackings continue to be.
So what we're seeing in both burglaries and thefts is a continued decline from 2019. So a 10% decline overall in property crime from 2019. Some areas more than that. As you know, during the shutdown these last few years, burglaries and thefts dropped as violent crimes increased, and we're still continuing to see a decline compared to 2019, 2018, pre-pandemic. But we do see a spike from this year to 2021 in burglaries and thefts, but still below 2019's.
Last question.
Yes, Charles.
Superintendent here.
Yes, and we've expressed our concern about the no cash bail repeatedly, and we're talking with the legislature. Hopefully, we can break through and get some adjustments, amendments to that bill, that law.
Another quick question.
Sure.
Last week we were here.
So we had several kids come downtown this past weekend without incident. We had an additional resource deployment pre-deployed to the location that we knew that they would congregate, and they behaved themselves, but I think the show of presence was part of that. We'll continue that, and we'll continue to increase our level of resources. That's one of the discussions this week that we're having, even though, you know, we didn't have the similar issues with young people downtown than we had 2 weekends ago. We still need to add more resources to our downtown, to our CTA, as well as to all of our neighborhoods throughout the city as it gets warmer. We already know that, so we're anticipating adding before we get to the Memorial Day weekend or Father's Day or 4th of July weekend. So more to come as it relates to adding more and more resources. This will call for our adjustments to our schedules, though, for our officers. So it's not done lightly, because our officers' schedule is something that we really are concerned about it when it comes to officer wellness. So we try to balance the two. Thank you very much, all. Appreciate it. What's that?
Is that a no days off?
We try to balance it one of the 2 days off. We don't cancel their vacations. We don't cancel their holidays that they have scheduled, but we do try to schedule on a rotating basis maybe one of the days off, depending on the issues that we have to address. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.